Good morning, everyone. We're going to start. So a warm welcome to those attending and also to the viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This meeting is a meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, and my name is Councillor Darren Davies, and I will be chairing this meeting. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, and copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the broadcast. Please note that members of this committee will be using tablets and laptops to view the agenda today. Fire alarm, we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm goes off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building. Mobile devices, for those in the room, please switch off any mobile devices before the meeting starts or put them on silent. Declarations of interest. Councillors, if you have any declarations of interest to make in relation to today's agenda, please ensure that you state whether it's pecuniary or non-pecuniary and give the reasons for your interest. Members need not declare an interest if any item on the agenda where they have already listed on their register of interest. Furthermore, you do not need to declare an interest just because you're a ward councillor or because you are a governor. Residents' feedback. For those watching via YouTube, if you are minded, you can complete one of our residents' feedback forms. These can be found in the information section underneath the YouTube broadcast. And for those of you intending, these are intended to help us improve the way we run the council and the chairman speak. Attendees, now we move on to the attendees of this meeting, and if we could all introduce ourselves for the record, starting with my colleague on the right.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chantal McLeod. I'm the legal officer for today's meeting.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Kelly Martin.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Nelson West, a member of this committee.
Good morning, Nigel Davis, Head of Gaming Machines.
Yeah. Good morning, Steve Ambrose, Operations Director for the applicant.
Good morning, Amanda Kiernan, Head of Compliance for the applicant.
Good morning, Sarah Lefebvre, Barrister representing the applicant.
Good morning, Felix Faulkner, Solicitor for the applicant.
Good morning, Lois King, Principal Licensing Officer, here as the case officer for this application.
Ryan Dow, Democratic Services.
And I'm Councillor Darren Davies, Chairman of this committee. Apologies for absence?
No apologies, Chair.
Declarations of interest? Nope. To confirm that all parts of this will be in part 1 and will be considered in public. Matters that have been notified in advance or urgent? No. Okay, so we will move on. So we go on to the introduction from the licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The application you have in front of you is for a new bingo premises licence under Section 159 of the Gambling Act 2005, which has been made on behalf of the applicant Mercure Slots UK Limited. It concerns the premises part ground floor at 62 Station Road, Hayes, UB3 4DF. The application was received by the licensing service on the 16th of June 2025, and the closing date for representations was the 14th of July 2025. The application was sent to all the responsible authorities, and it was advertised in accordance with the relevant regulations. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. However, there was one representation from an interested party, namely Christine O'Hara Carnduff, who unfortunately is not in attendance here today. We received additional information on the 14th and 15th of October 2025 from the legal representatives for Mercure Slots Limited, which included additional submissions, an outline of the case, statements from Head of Compliance, the Operations Director and the Head of Machines at the company, their policies and procedures, and additional guidance from the Gambling Commission and extracts from the relevant legislation. This information has been circulated to the subcommittee and can be found as an addendum to the report. Chair, you would have seen my report, which contains my observations, highlights from the guidance, codes of practice and Hillingdon's statement of gambling policy. And I now invite you, the subcommittee, to now consider this application in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Councillors, do we have any questions at this time for Lois? Councillor Nelson West?
Thank you, Chair. There was a local risk assessment done by the council. Was there a number of people who can have in the premises, for fire risk?
Councillor, the local risk assessment that's in the agenda pack has been produced by Mercure Slots UK Limited, and that is in relation to their application, so that question would need to be directed to...
We'll hold off on that for the discussion-led part. Councillor Nelson-West, that may be easier. Okay, so we'll now move on to... No questions? No, lovely. Right, we'll move on to the applicant and the licence holder.
Thank you very much. As I've already introduced myself, Sarah Lefebvre, counsel for the applicant. You know that this is an application by Mercure Slots UK Limited for the new bingo premises licence. We have produced what you may think, we hope, is a useful, helpful, detailed, supporting set of material covered by my skeleton argument, and I intend to make this application by effectively glossing briefly my skeleton argument. I know you'll have read the papers. I'm sure you won't thank me for reciting documents or papers of this sort of volume to you. You'll know, though, through that material that the business of Mercure is the provision of safe and pleasant gaming environments. It's what Amanda Kiernan, who sits to my left, says in her witness statement. It is a business in which Mercure is very highly experienced indeed. It runs exactly these sorts of venues very successfully across the country. It's operating in a appropriately highly, but a very highly regulated environment, and it's done so successfully across what is now over 230 premises. We're very grateful to your officer for setting out so comprehensive a summary of the relevant framework within which you make your decision. It's made our lives very much easier to have such a detailed summary, so thank you very much indeed. What we hope you found in the supporting bundle is hard and concrete evidence of the way in which Mercure goes about its business, meets and promotes the gambling licensing objectives, how it goes about compliance with the regulatory regime, and how it meets the specific expectations that you set out in your own policy. For example, your perfectly correct expectation that a premises of this type will be equipped fully with high definition of CCTV, how age verification is ensured, how the vulnerable are protected in premises such as these, and all of that, both in policy and process, is set out in detail and described further in the witness statement. Part 2 of my skeleton argument, at paragraph 6 and following, I've set out a little bit more about the applicant and the ambit and scope of its business. At paragraph 8, I have said, because it's true, that this is an applicant that has never been refused a licence, and that none of its trading licences has ever been subject to the review process, which, as you'll know well, sir, can be triggered by anybody who lives sufficiently closely to a premises. It's an impressive record, no issue raised about the operation of these premises. And whilst you, of course, are concerned with this application in this particular locality, in which you are really the experts, you have before you hard evidence of a responsible, trustworthy operator capable of operating in a vast range of localities and confident with a justification that it will operate successfully here too. So far as the councillor's questions concerned, yes, of course, there was completed the local area risk assessment. You have it in the bundle. We're required to complete an assessment. You'll know that those assessments are perhaps presented in a range of detail. Mercure goes about this business very carefully, very extensively. That's why you have an 18-page set of very close typed information recorded into this risk assessment. You'll know, for example, through that document that there was proactive consultation with the responsible authorities, including the police authority. This is an applicant that knows that it needs to inform itself with the best expertise, which comes from your own responsible authorities, about what issues it may need to deal with in particular. What are the sensitivities? How can we help? We hope not only not to interfere, but we hope to positively assist an area when we come and start trading. So So far as a fire risk assessment is concerned, though, that's not the purpose of the local area risk assessment. We must comply with the fire safety regulations. That requires us to complete a fire safety risk assessment. That's a completely different document to the document that you have here, and that's why that document is silent on the minutiae of fire safety and capacity and fire exits and so on. That documentation isn't, we thought, relevant to bring to your attention in support of today's hearing. What the police told us, as you'll know, was that they experience a few issues as to antisocial behaviour, as every police authority does, that there are particular concerns about violence against women, not a topic that's associated with a premises of this type, that they have a concern about tower blocks and the way in which residents feel safe or don't feel safe within tower blocks. But they didn't bring any issue to our attention, nor do they bring any issue to your attention, which is concern or raising any concern about this proposed new premises. This is an applicant which is, I say, justifiably proud of that excellent record. At paragraph 10, over a lot of sub-paragraphs, I'm sorry about this, running from A all the way through to D. I'll do better in another skeleton. And I suppose shamelessly I might say it's because I had so much to say about policy and process. But we really do. We do it well, and we collectively can answer any detail, I think, that you might have, questions that you might have for further detail. Just picking up sub-paragraph G, I say customer numbers are very low. They really are very low. They're typically a single digit at any one time. That's the typical customer profile across our estate. So we're on very safe ground in saying to you that's what we would expect here. And that's probably part of the genesis, part of the reason why these are premises of this type really don't cause concern for either residents or for responsible authorities once they're up and running. Rather to the contrary, our experience in all those other areas is that we are a positive force. We are open 24 hours a day. We do have CCTV cameras. We do have staff. And if issues do arise in the area, nothing to do with a particular venue, we are a source for good, preventive and deterrent, because we're there and we're open and we're obviously there and open, and we can assist the police with their work. As I say, we can help you further with any aspect of detail you might have about those paragraphs in due course. Paragraph 12 and following, I've said something about the regulatory regime in which we operate. You perhaps don't need to know so very much more because your officer did everything that we could have expected by way of explaining what that framework was. At paragraph 16, may I pick up the point that I've just made? High street bingo premises in general, and Merkers in particular, are really completely different from other licensed premises and other gambling licensing premises in terms of their impact. We know that generally. We have our analysis, and I've given you part of that for why that is. Your responsible authorities plainly don't have a concern. That's not to say we rest on our laurels. We audit and self-audit ourselves very regularly indeed. You have the report from Levesh Associates in the bundle. You know that they've been instructed by us to carry out both overt and covert inspections of 70 and counting of our premises in the very recent history. We've produced reports carried out by them for the most proximate or most like premises we can, and they've explained to you through their words and on their experience what they view and what they see about premises. It's not luck, effectively, that our premises across that estate have caused no issue. It's experience, it's the nature of the offering, it's how we go about it. May I pick up paragraph 20 when I've said something about the exterior appearance of bingo premises? They are smart, they're well maintained, they're spotlessly clean. That's important for a high street, it's important for the presentation of a high street. What we find it engenders is respect in customers for being in the premises itself. Respect for the premises, respect for the environment, respect for the wider environment. And what it does as a side effect is minimise the prospects of unwelcome customer attendance. We are clearly who we are. We're smart, we're clean, and we expect our customers to respect us as well. We've told you something in paragraph 21 about what our expectations expectations of staff are in respect of customers, right from the point of entry. These very small customer numbers against our staff, they're assessed, they're welcomed, they're spoken to, they're engaged with, they're interacted with, right from their presentation and throughout their time in the premises. Free tea and coffee, it's there, it's conversational, it's relaxed, it's quiet, it's safe, it's calm. Paragraph 24, we've told you something about the way in which we go about that really key licensing objective of protecting vulnerable people from being harmed or exploited. We define, and you'll have picked this up from the papers, vulnerability as meaning those whose ability to control their own behaviour is or may be in some way limited, whether because that they are experiencing gambling urges, whether they have perhaps their own mental health challenges, whether they are under perhaps potentially under the influence of drink or drugs. And you know that we take all of that extraordinarily seriously. We've provided you our safer gambling policy, and again we can go through in as much or a little detail as you want what sits behind and within that. It's really important to us, and again we couldn't be operating successfully if it wasn't that important to us. I'll skip on, if I may, to part 4 of the skeleton argument, where I've picked up the legal framework. Again, I perhaps need to say very little more than your officer has said and that you've read in the skeleton argument, and I know you're well familiar with the framework, but it would be remiss of me not to emphasise and re-emphasise the point that this is a regime that requires a licensing authority to aim to permit applications. Of course you have the discretion to refuse, but that aim to permit is described by the Gambling Commission as the primary obligation of licensing authorities fixed with an application of this type. What I've sought to do in the balance of this section is to explain, and again I know you know this well, but what factors are irrelevant and must be set aside in your decision making, and against those what factors are relevant and which you do need to and will consider. Into the irrelevant, demand, moral objections, perhaps a dislike or a distaste for gambling generally, all of that must be set aside, as you know. What is relevant is what evidence you have before you, existence or absence of evidence, which evidentially demonstrates what the likely effect or impact of the grant of this application is likely to be on the licensing objectives. What is relevant is the position of your responsible authorities as expressed positively or impliedly by their silence. What is relevant is this applicant's proven and extensive history of successful operation of gambling premises. What is relevant is their proven systems. And then if all of that doesn't satisfy you, that this is an application that you can safely grant, whether there is any further condition which might assist you so as to allow you to meet that aim to permit, a condition necessary to allow you to permit. That's perhaps all I wanted to say about section 4 of my skeleton argument, and still less about section 5. Section 6, I picked up representations. There is one representation. It's at pages 58 to 59 of your original agenda papers. The author of that representation has clearly expressed a number of concerns. We don't intend in any way to disrespect the person who's made that representation or the concerns they express in it. What we wish to do is to be a good, supportive, sensitive commercial neighbour. And you will have anticipated a but coming, within the scheme of your decision-making framework today, that representation contains little. In fact, I would say it contains nothing that is relevant to your determination today. It is a representation that has misunderstood the ambit of the plans. You know through the submitted plans that this bites on the ground floor and only part of the ground floor of what was a Barclays Bank. You know now what the tiny customer attendance at any one time is in this venue. The customer attendance, the profile of customers attending this venue will have limited, if any, impact on parking facilities and arrangements in the area. All of the responsible authorities, including the planning authority, have been completely silent in response to the application. But in any event, concerns about parking really are irrelevant to this application in any case. The author expresses some concern about the need or otherwise for gambling facilities. Irrelevant, you know that. And does seem to express, I may be overreading it, but it seems to express a general dislike for gambling. And by extension, a perception of the customers who might engage in gambling. And I'm afraid that too is utterly irrelevant to your determination today. The author's not here, so we don't know whether they might have had anything else to say, but they've electively not turned up today. So there's nothing else that we can address, there's nothing else that we can answer. In summary then, paragraph 50 of my skeleton argument, there is no basis, I suggest, for refusing this application. To the direct contrary, this subcommittee is invited to conclude and confirm that every aspect of the principles set out in section 153 of the Act are met, and we do urge and invite you to grant the application accordingly. I don't put my application in that way to short-circuit or disrespect any aspect of this application. You can see how seriously this applicant takes the business of appearing before you, and has certainly not taken anything at all for granted, but I don't at the same time wish to waste anybody's time by reciting points of information that you're already more than familiar with. So that's the application, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for your detailed report, and Lois, thank you for your information. I must say on record that's made this a lot easier for us. Do we have any questions at this time, guys? Yep.
Just a couple of quick questions. In your risk assessment with the local area, were there any concerns raised from your end or for anybody around the school times when children are passing by? Because the venue is right by bus stops where people will be coming home from school. And generally within your business, are there issues at school times of children trying to access the venue?
So can you turn the mic on?
Oh, sorry, yeah, just pop the mic on.
I was so good in the first place and failed completely. I'll answer initially, and then Amanda, who drew up the risk assessment, I'll ask for any further detail. The answer is we need to be aware, because of course there are premises that we operate that are in the vicinity, generally or specifically of schools or similar. Of course we're live to school premises, and we need to be live to them. We don't find in practice that the offering and the presentation of the venue poses any attraction or creates any sort of attraction. If we found that were otherwise, frankly we would go back and look at the way in which we design the premises. We don't allow children in at all. We operate a Think 25 policy. We don't, frankly, want to be bothered by the prospect of children trying to come into the premises. So it's not in the company's interests to be at all attractive. We're successful in that because we're not attractive, and children don't look to come into the venue as a routine matter, or really at all. Nobody's brought a concern to our attention in preparation for this specific hearing. Again, none of that is to suggest that we're so arrogant as to assume that no child would ever try and walk through the door. But of course, because we have immediate staff in the immediate populating the premises and welcoming and greeting anybody who comes into the premises, they'll be turned away before there's a sort of a footstep or half a footstep into the premises. That's quite a long answer from me, but I'll ask Amanda if she has anything to add to that.
I think you've covered sort of most of that area, but we do consider the proximity of schools and different school ages, and also the bus routes and sort of travel routes that children will be taking to school. And we make sure that the staff in the venue are fully aware if there are any sort of concerns. In some of our venues where there would be a bus stop in very close proximity, so we would actually make sure staff are aware. We have a very high percentage rate of identifying children when they do attempt, and it is, I say it's high, but it's very low, but we do identify them, and the percentage of children actually gaining access to the premise is minimal. They're identified and they're asked to leave, but Sarah's saying that we're just not really attractive to sort of children, really. We don't sort of advertise anything that's appealing to children. I think that's all I can add.
Yep.
And just one, in your representation, you mentioned that you're open 24 hours. People are on hand. Just to clarify, this application is closing at midnight. That's not a future change to this application.
Stands as it. The application is made as it stands. Sorry, that's my loose language. We do operate across the estate regularly and on a 24-hour basis.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson West, do you have any questions at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously the number of people, like the premises, if you still got in Cricklewood, is 2,700 people. So how many in these premises would it hold? You know, the number of people coming attending, or the room for it? That makes sense.
Cricklewood was sold to Buzz Bingo. We don't operate traditional bingo clubs.
Fine.
Hence the parking, probably.
Yeah, this model is a very different model to what would be considered a traditional bingo club. This is a high street bingo model, and as Sarah pointed out, numbers are predominantly low, single digits. Occasionally might get into 10, 11 customers at a time, but you're looking at around those numbers. Commercially, I'd love 2,700, but it won't be.
I don't think our fire risk assessment is going to allow anything like that for this premises either.
Councillor Nelson West, do you have any more?
Yeah, thank you on that. What was I? Yeah, last time I went to bingo hall was House for my mum a long time ago. Long time ago. So I'm not used to that. What else was I going to say very quickly? Yes, so I was just thinking that when it closes, obviously you have large amounts of people, but when it closes, all those people will be going out at the same time. That's what I was worried about on that score, making noise. And if there's any staff dispersing them or helping them and that.
Again, I think it's a question of scale. You're quite right. And those more traditional, frankly, or sort of old-fashioned, hugely good fun, enormous bingo halls, yes, they would be subject to the same sort of concerns about dispersal at the close of the business. When you're dealing with such tiny numbers as we deal with in this model across the estate, it really is always, frankly, a single digit, very calm, very quiet, walking away from a premises at the end of when the customers had their time in the venue. We just don't experience any issue with dispersal, any negative impact on dispersal or on the neighbourhood when customers move away from the venue any time of day or night. It's a numbers function. It's coming back to the same answer, though. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Do you have anything else at the moment? No? Okay. I have a few questions. Do you have a policy for loitering? So I'm assuming that looking at the plan, there was about 40 machines in there. So if I'm playing the machine, do you have a policy for people standing around watching, not potentially playing? That would be one question there. Have we got a loitering policy to prevent the noise, ASB, anything like that? Because it is quite a diverse area. I understand why you feel a need for your business there. I'm just a bit concerned about loitering inside the business, coming in and out, so I'm just wondering if you have any plans or...
In terms of specific policy, no, but interweaved with various other policies, we have a sort of a no play, no stay policy across our piece. So if a husband and wife come in, clearly, and they're genuine, you allow them to stay. Groups, individuals, it would be a no play, no stay policy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Where are we going now? How many of your premises operate under the bingo licence and not the machine gaming licence? Is this a new thing that you've done, or is this something? Is there a reason why? I've seen the addendum, so I understand. I'm trying to get a feel, because to Joe Public, you see a bingo licence, you think 200 people going to be playing full houses, single lines. I just want to make sure that we're doing our bit for the residents of why this was your chosen application.
I mean, you'll know. Because of what we've said in writing already, effectively, so far as the machine part of the offering, it's the same under either or a bingo premises licence. Bingo has just moved on, and those sorts of enormous and great fun old halls aren't commercially viable anymore, but there is still very much an appetite for playing bingo and participating in bingo in this smaller, safer, cosy environment, which might be on paper in the old-fashioned sense, it might be on a tablet, both are readily available. So it's really, I suppose, a customer-driven model that has worked. It allows people to participate in what has always been, frankly, hugely good fun. One of the most fun aspects of any kind of gambling, because it's participatory, it's fun, it's light. But it just doesn't work commercially on the larger scale anymore.
Yep.
So if we're going to offer bingo, then it needs to be in this kind of environment. And we find that the two work hand in hand. That's why the licensing regime is framed the way it is. I think, and I'm trespassing outside my own expertise, I think most of the licences we hold are bingo premises licence rather than AGC simple licences.
Perfect.
But we can have the fact and figure on that provided to you.
No, I'm happy with that. Yeah. Thank you, that's perfect. My third question, what's the plan for the rest of the building? So I'm assuming you've got the ground floor, but then there's a second floor to that. I may be speaking out of turn, but I'm the chairman, I'm going to do it anyway. Is there a plan down the line to look to extend your premises to the second floor? Is that something that you're looking to do, or is that going to be office space? I know we're bordering line where we should be.
That's not a problem at all, and perfectly happy to sort of trespass around the edges of what it. We wouldn't operate over 2 floors. I don't think there's any premises of this type, a bingo premises, where we would operate over 2 floors. It destroys that sort of open plan supervision point. It's much harder to operate any kind of licensed venue over multiple floors. You need many more than doubling up of staff and equipment and so on. So the answer for the premises is no, it will stay on the ground floor. As to what might happen to the rest of it, I am outside my own knowledge now. I don't know if I have anyone here who can answer that question.
There's no plan at the moment?
No plan. A part of the building has gone back to the landlord, though, for
fine
to reduce our square footage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Another question. We're talking about door supervisors, SIA door supervisors. As you know, it's quite a diverse area. Opposite, there is a licensed premises already. Is there a plan to have you got a plan in place already for door supervisor hours? So the operation hours?
We would, and you'll probably expect this answer, we would employ door staff on a risk-assessed basis per venue. It'll be very specific. The precise plan as to whether and when hasn't been developed for this particular venue yet. But we do find that dynamic risk assessment is the correct model for us to employ, to be in situ as we come close to opening to decide what we actually require. And we'll of course discuss with the responsible authorities and so on, police in particular, as to what they think before we settle on a starting place. That's a long way of saying no.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll leave my questions there for now. I'll come back. Right, responsible authorities? No, lovely. Other parties? It's a shame that the resident who put submission in isn't here, because there could be stuff that we've missed, so that's a shame. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is move on to the discussion part led of this. So the subcommittee, the floor will be open to ask questions to the applicant, to Lois, and that's it. So we'll go from there. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Martin.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question to ask, but in terms of protecting the local area, it is an area that of the whole of the Hillingdon Borough has some level of deprivation in statistically higher numbers. What is the average spend of, sometimes there's one person sat in your premises playing. What is the average spend? And is there a limit where your staff, if they've been there 2 hours, where your staff intervene in order just to protect those vulnerable people?
So in terms of average spend, that's really tricky, because that can change from day to day, from premises to premises. I'll defer to those on my left shortly. But in terms of supervision and scrutiny, absolutely essential, and we engage with customers all the time. It's part of our written policy. You'll have picked that up. We describe it as a first line of defence, that employees, venue managers are expected and required to be engaging regularly. If a customer has been in a premises for a period of time, we would expect there to have been significant interaction to make sure that the customer isn't exhibiting any signs of stress, concern. We've listed some of the factors that we require staff to look out for. For example, a customer who might be coming a little bit frustrated might be starting to blame the machine or the world for the continuing run of bad luck. Simply being in the premises for a considerable amount of time might be enough. And a considerable amount of time might change and vary from customer to customer. It might be half an hour, it might be 40 minutes, it might be an hour, but we would certainly expect there to be involvement and assessment in a very gentle way. But what we're looking for are those trace signs that somebody is losing or perhaps losing a degree of control. We need to get there, recognise it before a customer gets to a place they don't want to be. That's not, obviously it's not good for them, but it really is not at all good for us. What we want is customers to be gambling, playing safely and responsibly, and that means fully in control of what it is that they're doing. So what we've tried to do is, through the process or through the written documents, explain to you both what the policy is, what we expect of our staff, and at a sort of more micro level, what it is that we are requiring staff to look out for before the issue bubbles, before it becomes a concern and a problem for the individual. So that's, again, a rather long answer, which basically says we've tried to say it in paper. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm not sure we're going to be able to say very much by way of an average spend. I think that's quite a difficult thing to say. Yeah.
And just quick, you mentioned you have a third-party provider for the age check-in and testing. Are you able to share statistically how robust your own policy is versus what the testers find? Are you in a position to share that?
So how often do Labesh associates find an issue and bring it to our attention? Goodness, that's an interesting question. I haven't been asked that before. So I'll
We use Serve Legal.
Yeah. We use a company called Serve Legal, and they do anonymous test purchase, age verification, they call it test purchase visits, a minimum of 3 per year. We are operating at quite a high standard compared to the rest of the sector. I don't mind sharing, because the trade association do share their statistics. If there is a fail, it has to be investigated within 48 hours, and that includes reviewing CCTV to see if where the member of staff may have failed in identifying that person. And then there is a sort of a disciplinary process. Steve, you might want to jump in from an ops side.
I just think it's worth noting that Serve Legal, they operate under the basis of Think 25, so their testers will be 25 and under, and it's the failure based on those who are under 25, not children playing. So.
Councillor Nelson, do you have any questions at the moment?
No, I think they've all must have been answered with a skeleton argument, I think.
Okay, so I have a few. My one's about your machines, so you guys are here, so let's test them. Are your machines going to be the new machines with the facial recognition built in, or are you relying on staff to challenge this?
This facial recognition is more in pubs, just the issues they have. We rely on face-to-face.
Perfect. Yep, I love that. I know facial recognition has been a massive thing at the moment, so I'm a big fan of using the person to do that job, so thank you. I understand we've not released a CCTV plan, but I'm assuming you will have your own. I understand for safety reasons why, in the nature of your business. A question generally, how much ASB do you normally get in one of your standard venues? So someone potentially has lost a lot of money on the machine, is that something that you track? That someone's lost a lot of money on the machine, has maybe smashed the machine screen or punched the machine. Do you track that data? Would you keep an incident log of that, or is that something that you wouldn't unless police or something was called?
We record all incidents, no matter how minor. The staff are trained to do that through all the various incident logs that we have, and they're recorded electronically. Generally, because the staff are there and they're circulating and they're talking with the customers, and most of the customers are known because they become regular clientele. You're not looking at hundreds of new customers coming in all the time. We find that individually, at an individual basis, a venue would be very low on ASB. And as I say, we do risk assess depending on the area as to what we may need in addition to our standard practices, but I say our training is comprehensive enough that the staff are constantly engaged with the customers, which automatically lowers the level of antisocial behaviour.
And staffing levels, have you built a staffing level plan yet? Because I'd be quite concerned that if there's potentially one member of staff on their own going into the later part of a Friday night or a Saturday night with the locality of this venue. So is that something you build when you're up and running, or do you have a one shoe fits all sort of thing?
Yeah, we operate nationally with a policy of no lone working after 10 p.m. However, in practice, and because of shift changes, generally we're operating around about 1.6 to 1.75 staff per hour over a piece. There will be times when people are lone working, but that's minimalised, and we've got a number of policies, a number of available resources that mitigate any potential risk thereafter. But generally, it's one or two, mostly two.
And I'm glad we've spoke about that, because you've got the equivalent to staff safe, I believe, equipment. So can we just run through for the committee how that works?
Yep, so staff guards, each member of the team will have a fob on them. If they believe that something they're going to do may encompass any level of challenge, they're able individually to press the fob. That then connects to a external resource who have access into the CCTV. They also have live audio, so they have audio-visual recording of the incident. 95% of the time it's not needed, however it's there as an added resource, and in the times where it is needed, because something does happen, then it's automatically recording for any evidential purposes as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So just before I move on, do we have any questions? No? Okay. So now we'll move on to closing remarks, and we'll start with Lois.
None from me, Chair.
Thank you. And then applicant.
So I appreciate the opportunity, but honestly, you've heard so much from us. I would be repeating things that I've said orally or in writing already. You won't thank me for that. We do invite you to grant the application as made.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for you guys that come in today. It's nice to see so many people come to support a business. Your 200, I believe it was, and 70 pages we had to read. So yeah, there was a lot of information there that was really well thought out, so thank you. So what we're going to do now, we'll move on to the deliberation stage. So you guys will be asked to leave the room. The subcommittee will have a conversation and work out the next step. We will then put the decision notice online. You're more than welcome to stay. So it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour. But if you want to hang around for a bit, and if it's going to go on longer than normal, we will let you know. But it will be put online, and you will receive a notice in writing as well. So thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.